When Amos confessed his love to me 8 years ago, he promised he'd love me for the rest of his life. 8 years later, he got my best friend pregnant, drained my family's property, and then looked me dead in the eye and said, "Let's divorce. There's still 100 Zaloden yuan left in the family savings." He added coldly, "I'll give it all to you." Like he was being generous. Like that was enough to pay for my wasted youth, my broken heart, my dead dreams. When I opened my eyes again, I was no longer standing in that cold, silent living room. I was back in my school uniform. Back in the sunlit classroom of my youth. I was 18 again, bright as the sun, the apple of my father's eye. Amos was still the same. Poor but handsome, the school hunk every girl dreamed of. Gwen was still my best friend, still pretending to be pitiful, hiding her snake fangs behind her soft smile. And that gloomy boy who always bullied me, he still sat in the corner, silent, watching me with those cold eyes, secretly harboring a crush he'd never admit. The illegitimate son of the ER family hadn't jumped yet. Not yet. This time, maybe I could save him. Maybe I could save myself. Maybe I could rewrite it all. I looked at Amos across the schoolyard. The wind carried his laughter. The same laughter that would one day break my heart. Not this time. This time, I'd get my revenge before he could even say, "Let's divorce." My father passed away at the beginning of this year. Amos became increasingly busy, and he eventually stopped coming home at night. A month ago, the company that my father had left us went bankrupt. Amos stated that after liquidation, the family had only 100 Zazen yuan left, and he would leave it all to me to sign. Tia is looking at Amos's unfamiliar face. I couldn't believe he had pampered me so much over the last 8 years. He massaged me at night, held me in the morning, and always gave me a good morning kiss before I left. But now this angular face was filled with coldness everywhere. "Are you finished, Amos?" A familiar voice emerged. Wen pushed the door open and walked in. She was my best friend from high school. She had been with me since her first year of high school, and had been single ever since. Her lower abdomen was slightly enlarged. I was shocked. "Gwen, what is going on?" She put her hand on her stomach, terrified and weak, and hid behind Amos. "Taya, I'm sorry. It's Amos' child." I told him not to be so impatient, but he was unable to wait. I did not mean it. He just loves me so much that he can't stop himself from doting on me every night, and I ended up getting pregnant by accident. My heart was as dead as ash. I looked at Amos. Amos frowns tightly, meeting my disappointed gaze. He didn't seem happy. There was even a hint of irritation between his brows. He told Gwen to go out first. "Do not hurt the child." Gwen departed reluctantly. When she closed the door, she gave me a triumphant smile. I looked at Amos. "Now that it has come to this, I believe I understand. It is not that my family went bankrupt, instead, you emptied and transferred our property. Right?" Amos stayed silent. I smiled at him and then started crying. As a result, the emotions of the past 8 years were also fabricated. "Amos, you have never liked me." Amos clenched his fists and said nothing. When I fell backwards, Amos wanted to come and hold me, but I pushed him away. He yelled at me with red eyes. "Tia, don't call me that anymore. I feel disgusted. I've always thought I was the happiest. My mother died young, leaving my father to raise me alone and lavish me with affection later on. You were also by my side, protecting me. It turns out that all of this was a scam. Amos, these 8 years with you felt like a nightmare. If I had the chance to do it over again, I hope you wouldn't. You and Gwen, these two scoundrels, will reap what you sow." There was a sharp pain in the back of my head, and I slowly lost consciousness. "Amos, Tia." I slowly opened my eyes, only to discover that I had fainted on the lawn, while still holding a mobile phone. Someone was calling me on the phone. The voice sounded strange, yet familiar. "Tia, where are you currently? Did you faint again from low blood sugar? Dad will find you right now." It was Dad's voice on the other end of the phone, sounding very concerned. Dad had already died. How could he still be calling me? I sat up, rubbed the aching back of my head, and realized I was wearing a school uniform skirt that showed a section of my fair calves. Punching and kicking could be heard down the alley. "Kneel and beg me, and I will let you go." "Lur, you dirty, illegitimate son. Do you even deserve to study and attend our top middle school?" I subconsciously dashed over there. "What are you doing now?" Lar was thinly dressed, with red eyes and a fierce expression around the corners. He suddenly raised his head to look at me, his eyes filled with waves. Looking at this face reminded me of someone who had been buried in my memories for a long time. My father's best friend, ER's father, abandoned his illegitimate son outside. It was claimed that ER's father had cheated his mother into marriage in his early years. Later, his mother died in a car accident, and he was adopted into the Aller family. ER's father's wife was cunning, and she eventually tortured him to death. He died during his sophomore year. Shortly after his death, I got an anonymous letter. The envelope contained a bank card and a piece of paper. A series of numbers was written on the paper, 130924. After checking, I discovered that the account holder was deceased, and the card contained all of his savings from his short life. So, where am I currently? Have I returned to the past? While I was lost in thought, those people dragged me over. Oh, here comes a girl. Will you come to play the hero and save the beauty? They reached out to touch me. Appeared to have been triggered by something and became enraged. Get lost and don't touch her. As a result, he was beaten again. Last time I didn't come over, instead, I ran away at a distance. The last thing I saw before running away was him curled up on the ground, being punched repeatedly. But this time, he was like a wolf protecting its master, his eyes filled with a desire for survival. The situation evolved from being beaten unilaterally to a fight. He stood in front of me. I was so nervous that I shouted out loud. Tia is very well known in the number 1 middle school. My father adores me. If you don't believe it, just ask around today. I want to protect him. Dare to touch me. Let's see how my father responds to you. Sure enough, their expressions changed. They took a careful look at me. They suddenly shouted, "It's Tia Lur. You're lucky today. Someone is protecting you." They ran away, leaving a shambles around Lear, who picked up his bruised body and said, "You shouldn't have come to save me, Tia." I didn't expect to cry, but when I realized I'd come back and had a chance to start over, seeing myself cry made my eyes turn red. He froze, as expected. "You are called Tia. So delicate." "Even though I am delicate, I saved you," I replied. 10 minutes later, my father, with his chubby body, came running over straightforwardly and honestly. Uncle Xiao, the driver, was desperately gasping for air behind him. Dad and Tia. Dad looked at me, then at Lur, who was completely soaked and had facial injuries. "What happened to you too?" I spoke before Lur. "Dad. Someone bullied me, and he saved me." Lar once looked at me with surprise. I wasn't very nice to him. I had only helped him once. But I hardly spoke to him for the next 2 years because he was quiet, disliked socializing, and I was afraid Amos would misunderstand. Now that I think about the letter I received after his death, I want to save him. I had a lot of questions, including how he died in his previous life, and what the string of numbers meant. I did not avoid everyone's gaze and looked up at him. Aller clenched his fists and his ears turned red. His reaction reminded me of something from the past. When I saw him fighting with others, they had snatched his belongings, causing him to explode in that confined space. His roar startled everyone. During the scuffle, those individuals threw out a pen. Only then did I realize that what he was protecting was the pen I had casually given him. When we first met, the pen fell to my feet. He dashed out to pick it up, then slowly raised his head to see me. At that point, his ferocity and helpless embarrassment were visible in front of me. When I heard about him again, it was after his death. "Do I?" In the car, Dad inquired. "Our uncle would take you home first." "No, don't interrupt Dad's words first. He'll accompany us home, Dad." Dad knew Ilar didn't have a good life. He had once considered bringing his old friend's son to our home to care for. Unfortunately, I objected. I even protested in front of everyone, claiming that he was pestering our family. This time, my unusual demeanor surprised both of them, particularly Lur. When we arrived at my house, he didn't say anything and wiped the blood from his face with the back of his hand. I rushed to get him a towel. After Dad left, he looked at me and slowly asked, "You're helping me like this. Aren't you afraid I'll bother you?" So what if he bothered me? Could he be more ruthless and ambitious than Amos? Furthermore, how could a person who had known me since junior high school and could leave his entire estate to me, after his death, be so cruel to me? I arranged for Lr to stay in the room next to mine. Then I purposefully passed by his door before going to bed. I asked him through the door, "Layar 130924, what do you think this means?" R suddenly opened the door. "Tia, why are you helping me?" he asked glumly and deeply. I could see the hidden emotions in his young heart and the indescribable restraint in his eyes. It was a secret love, as well as the excitement and inferiority of looking up at a shining pearl. I suddenly felt bad in my heart. I blamed myself for not seeing people all these years and for failing to reach out to him when he needed me. Most of the time, Tia Aller called me back. I withdrew my thoughts. His eyes were burning like wolves. I felt unnatural and said, "Thank you for saving me today anyway. You do not have a good life in the Aller household. Why don't you stay here?" I couldn't say you'd die in 2 years, but I'm living a second life and want to try to save you. Can I? Additionally, someone has recently tried every means to pester me, so I'm relying on you to help me keep those people away. Is this okay? Lur did not say anything. I smiled at him. Take it as payment for saving me. Today, my smile dazzled him, leaving him stunned for a moment. Standing under the light, he seemed extremely tall. The light shone on his long eyelashes, casting a layer of shadow, and his breath sprayed lightly on my face. The next morning, Dad insisted on sending me to school. Uncle Sha was driving, and my father was sitting in the passenger seat. He would occasionally turn around and give me and Lur an indescribable look. I knew what was on my father's mind. I had changed so much, and I took the initiative to accept it. My father was concerned that I had lost my mind or something. I whispered, "Daddy, he can protect me." "Okay, fair enough." My father was concerned as he reflected on what had happened the night before. When Lur got out of the car, he pursed his lips and looked back at my father, saying, "Don't worry, Uncle," as if he thought that wasn't sufficient. He added silently, "If anything happens, I'll be standing in front of her." Finally, my father let out a lawn sign that said, "All right." When we walked into the school, many people noticed that Lur was walking beside me. Someone suddenly rushed up behind me. Tia Gwen came over and affectionately grabbed my arm. "Why are you attending class with this guy?" Gwen's tone indicated wariness. I looked at her and quietly pushed her hand away. Gwen's expression immediately changed, becoming pitiful. "Tia, I'd never forget that." 8 years later, she hid behind Amos, claiming that he couldn't stop spoiling her every night and was eager to get her pregnant. I growled at her, "Do not touch me, Tia." Gwen was visibly upset. Aller noticed my abnormal reaction. He looked down at me, then changed positions and walked on my right side, silently separating me from Gwen. I could finally breathe normally, and my out-of-control emotions had subsided. I told myself in my heart, "Don't rush." I changed my tone and appeared even more agitated than Gwen. "I am sorry, Gwen. I did not mean to be mean to you. I didn't sleep well last night, and I think what you said was excessive." Gwen was immediately speechless and gave a pitiful expression. She wanted to draw everyone's attention and show off my alleged spoiled temper as a young lady, but how could I let her deal with green tea? A scheming person who pretends to be innocent requires you to be even more green tea than they are. I asked her. "Unfortunately, Eliar is a classmate and the son of my father's close friend who shares my desk. How could you be such a snob? Gwen, you are making it extremely difficult for me, because you keep looking down at him with every word you speak." Gwen's expression crackled. She couldn't even keep her weak smile. Her nose wrinkled with bitterness. As she looked at me gloomily, she realized I wasn't going to help her out. She had no option but to mumble, "I apologize and will hurry away." After seeing Gwen leave, I looked up to see Lur looking at me curiously. "Why did you say that?" "Just now," he suddenly asked me, "Taya, if it was because I disliked her or if I wanted to protect her." ER's voice was so captivating that my heart skipped a beat for a split second. I assumed he would pass away. After a brief hesitation, I took a deep breath and stated, "I want to protect you." Aller averted his gaze, slightly stunned. "You liar, Aller. I am not lying to you." His subconscious action just now could not fool anyone. When Gwen bullied me, he shielded me. Then, when others discriminated against him, I should defend him. Furthermore, how could Gwen reveal her true colors if I hadn't stirred things up? As expected, Gwen sneaked out after the first class, and I quietly followed her until I ran into her and Amos in a secluded laboratory. Amos inquired when he saw her. "Gwen." This was the first time I witnessed her and Amos getting along in private. In my memory, Gwen was always self-centered, delicate, and afraid of men, and she spoke in a soft voice. In previous years, she would only talk to Amos when I was present. I once asked her to add Amos on WeChat, and she refused, saying, "Tia, it's not good. He's your boyfriend." I said that because she was my best friend. I asked her to include my boyfriend. At the time, she still appeared helpless and shyly noted Tia's boyfriend for Amos. But now there was no one else around. She took the initiative and snuggled into Amos' arms. She even rubbed her chest against him, either intentionally or unintentionally, and coquettish treated Amos like a spoiled child. Amos, who is 18 years old, has already grown to a height of 188 centimeters. He was extraordinarily handsome and smelled like sunshine all over. The wind blew through his hair, covering his eyes. I expected Amos to hug Gwen, but instead, he froze for a moment. Then he pushed Gwen away. Gwen was surprised. Amos' face turned pale. He took 2 steps back, his forehead in his hand. "Wait a minute while I calm down." The wind carried his voice to my ears, and it sounded familiar. Amos's voice was sunny and refreshing in high school, but it lacked a sense of steadiness. After marrying and establishing his career as the manager of my family's company, Amos had more of the steadiness of a person in a high position, and his tone was short and intense. I had been by his side for 8 years, accompanying him through his childhood, and watching him mature into President Amos. I was overly familiar with every change in him. I froze on the spot. This was even more shocking than witnessing Gwen throw herself into his arms in high school, as I could return. What about him? Before I could figure it out, Amos's following actions had already confirmed my suspicion. He looked at the still innocent Gwen and asked, "What time is it? Why are you dressed this way?" His eyes lingered on Gwen's flat abdomen. Gwen blushed beneath his gaze and whispered, "Amos, it's break time now. What is wrong with you? I am wearing this dress. Tia purchased it for me. It costs 3,000 yuan. Doesn't it look great?" When Gwen mentioned me, I noticed it. Amos frowned even more deeply. He held his head and took a long time to heal. "I see." Then he smiled. "And that's how it is, I understand now." Gwen grabbed him just as he was about to leave. "Amos, what is wrong with you? Are you sick?" Unfortunately, Amos did not look at her. Instead, he asked anxiously, "Where is Tia?" "Tia?" Gwen uttered the two words angrily. "Why are you calling her that, Amos? I'm telling you we need to accelerate our plan." "Tia, the fool. I'm not sure what got into her today." She yelled at me. She not only embarrassed me in public, but she also came very close to that withdrawn look. "If she gets together with Lear, there will be nothing for you. Amos, let us quickly do what we discussed before, go after her, and then find a way to get her family's money, so that your and my family's debts can be repaid." Amos appeared to be lost in thought, and Gwen continued, "We will still need money for school in the future. She is Amos's only child. If you win her heart, her entire family's property will become ours in the future. It's a lot better than going to work in the future. I mentioned you to her, and she is highly interested in you. You should seize the opportunity to strengthen your relationship with her. She's only 18 and very innocent. We should seize this opportunity." Amos muttered. "Yes, she's still very innocent at this point." As he said that, his eyes turned red. I could not bear to hear what she said next. Guessing what was going on was one thing, but hearing it with my ears was an entirely different experience in my innocent youth. It proved to be an excellent opportunity for others to scheme. It felt like a nightmare thinking about the previous 8 years I had spent with Amos. I walked away angry and ran into Lur at the corner. I was caught eavesdropping and greeted him. What a coincidence. Lur tightened his thin lips. "Not really." He slid his hands into his pockets and looked at me. Then I looked at the corner where I had been peeping. I am just now looking into the distance. He could see both Amos and Gwen. His gaze fell on Amos and he saw through my mood swings. He frowned and said, "Wait for me. After class, we'll leave together." When school ended, I suddenly felt a sense of security. Uncle Xiao, the driver, came to pick me up after I was beaten. Uncle XO arrived at the school gate early yesterday, and he now sees me and Alar walking outside together. Uncle Xia had no idea what romantic, idle drama plot had entered his mind, and his old face turned bright red. I explained that Uncle Xiao is not a handsome guy and that a beautiful girl. The school bell and hunk are very eye-catching. Uncle Xiao coughed almost to death from my cheeky words. When I was about to get into the car, someone called out from behind Tia. I turned around to see Amos running towards me, carrying a school bag and wearing yellowish-white sneakers. He used to give me his undivided attention, which was my favorite look, but now he gives me that regretful look, which makes me disgusted. I didn't stop and walked straight into my family's Mercedes-Benz. To hell with that poor young man. I deliberately invited LR to accompany me home in front of Amos. Amos stood there watching me treat him like air while smiling at Lur. His cheekbones tightened. "Tia." I tilted my head and pretended to look at him in confusion. After being betrayed, my classmate and I were in a relationship for 5 years and married for 3. When we met again, our youthful bodies were infused with mature souls. Did he think I was still the 18-year-old Taya? He probably regretted it and believed there was still a chance to start over in this life. But how could I possibly give him that chance? I wouldn't just refuse to give it to him. I'd also make him watch helplessly as he lost everything. Did he believe he could be a successful President Amos without the Taya family? "Is there anything?" I asked Amos inside. I was uninterested, but on the surface, I pretended to know nothing. "Hello, is there anything?" I repeated. Amos froze for a moment. His gaze at me was filled with mixed emotions. During the alum stare, my hands and feet grew cold. A surge of rage rushed through my head, and the unwillingness and hatred in my heart were about to burst out of my chest. But I held them in tightly and didn't let them explode. Just as I was about to lose control, a pair of hands pressed on my shoulders, and I suddenly sobered up and pulled myself out of this out-of-control emotional state. Aller looked at me. "Let's go. Didn't you say we were going home together?" I nodded and gave him a warm smile. "Yes, you are coming to my room tonight to tutor me." "Tutoring?" He almost couldn't control his expression and looked away awkwardly. "Yes," I nodded. Surprisingly, Aller did not expose me. Instead, he reached out and rubbed my head, which I just let him do. Our relationship was clearly defined by its closeness and distance. Amos froze on the spot. I said goodbye to him as if we were regular classmates. Uncle Xiao noticed my impatience and immediately started the car, until Amos' figure faded into the distance, looking pitiful. Lur didn't say anything the entire evening, so I stayed in my room until I noticed Ler had been sitting in the second-floor living room for quite some time. He appeared to be waiting for me. When he heard me approach, he stood up. I walked towards him and realized he was quite tall. Despite his thin build, he was taller than Amos. His facial features were three-dimensional and detailed. It's just that his bangs were too long and covered his eyes, as if he were trying to hide his excellent bone structure. I suddenly remembered hearing my father say that Ler resembled his deceased mother in those days. His father deceived his mother into marriage because she was so beautiful. I disagreed with what Er's father had done, but it was between the older generation, and the younger generation had no right to comment. I called him later. He responded, "Yes, do you have anything to talk to me about?" Aller suddenly looked at me, as if accusing me of lying. Tutoring. I was dumbfounded and could only manage a few dry laughs. This was simply something I made up to get rid of. Amos. I was always slacking in my studies. Real tutoring would undoubtedly take up half of my life in the years following marriage. Whether intentionally or not, by Amos, I had been spoiled. I couldn't recite the periodic table of chemical elements, but I could draw pretty well. I muddled through and smiled at him. "I'm a little tired today. Let us skip the tutoring. How about tomorrow?" Aller did not pester me. He stood up and returned to his room. He only paused for a moment as he passed by me. Lur's emotions were so deeply hidden that they could not be detected without careful observation. He was always like this, keeping everyone at a distance. Even his deepest emotions remained hidden. The sea's surface was calm, but the turbulence was hidden in his heart. In the middle of the night, I had a dream in a dream. Amos was choking me around the neck and beside us. Gwen was lying on my bed, posing seductively in front of me. She said, "Tia, everything you have is now mine." I smiled despairingly and said I would exact revenge on Amos. Then I broke free, turned around, and jumped off the building. The sudden sensation of weightlessness felt like an extreme pull. The pain all over my body was so intense that when I remembered it, I couldn't control my nausea and rushed into the bathroom to vomit. I vomited violently. I looked up at myself in the mirror. I was in a sorry state in this new life. After learning the truth, I expected to be even more eager to exact revenge. But it wasn't until I had that dream that I realized being trapped by these emotions, and those awful people for the rest of my life was the most foolish thing. Now all I want to do is avoid these two people altogether. At 3 a.m., I hugged my pillow and knocked on each of her doors. "Aller, are you sleeping?" Several minutes later, Aller opened the door. When he saw me, he froze. He subconsciously grabbed the door, and I slipped in and dashed to his bed. "Lur, it's so quiet here that I can hear his heart beating violently." His voice was low and hoarse. "What are you doing?" "I am scared." Lars stood in the darkness, speechless. This scene appeared very strange. I saved him the day before yesterday, and today I rushed into his bed. Who wouldn't think twice if they saw this? But in this life, the only people who could provide me with a sense of security were my father and he. "Lur, you said you'd stand in front of me if anything happened." So Er's breathing became heavier. "Get out." "I will not." I couldn't tell him what I was afraid of, so I simply said I had a nightmare. "Lur, that was terrifying. I'm delicate and weak, and I can easily be pushed down. I can't beat you. Do not be afraid that I will do something wrong at night. Lur, I'll just sleep in your bed for a while. I promise not to do anything to you." I took advantage of his attention and threw myself into his quilt Ers. The pillow and quilt were clean. They were ready the day before yesterday. He had slept on them for 2 nights. And the quilt was filled with his fresh and clean scent, giving me a complete sense of security. In the middle of the night, Lar noticed me lying on his bed. He couldn't move forward or backward. He was like a gloomy young man who met an unreasonable and cheerful female hooligan. Finally, he was a little helpless. Tia Aller appeared to be about to say something, but he held back. Finally, he gave up struggling. His voice sounded dry. "Then you sleep here. We still have classes tomorrow. I will go out and sleep." "Do not go." I grabbed him. Lur was rendered helpless by me. He couldn't out-argue me, and his tone conveyed a subtle sense of tolerance and indulgence. "Then I'll sit at the end of the bed and keep you company while you sleep. Lur doesn't go out after I fall asleep. I am scared." "Okay." His voice was low. He casually agreed with me. If I hadn't noticed that his entire body was stiff, I would have believed him. I took his bed, but I still invited him to sit and watch me sleep. How could I be so shameless? I whispered, "You can also get up and sleep, Lars' breathing became noticeably heavier. Tia, do you understand what you are saying? Yes, I do. We were all 18 years old. I wasn't an ignorant youngster. But if I had lived the majority of my life, and had a second chance, it would be incredibly dull if I still cared about these particulars. ER's quilt was incredibly warm. After being shocked all night, I had lost all patience. I immediately reached out and pulled him over. Was caught off guard by my unexpected pull and fell beside me. The silver moonlight shone through the window and fell on Aller's white bridge. His eyes were bright and deep as a pool. When I saw that, my heart rate slowed for a moment, and I fell asleep unconsciously. In a few days, I felt Lur climb up and stubbornly sit by my bed, guarding me for the entire night. Despite growing up in a single-parent household, my father treated me with the utmost respect. Even Lur, with whom I had little contact before his death, was taking good care of me. He accompanied me in such a way that it felt like he was protecting the pearl in his palm. When we went downstairs for breakfast, I walked in front, and Al followed suit. When Dad noticed that we were getting along well, he smiled happily. Then he saw all the dark circles under her eyes, and his smile became strange. He seemed to be implying something. Daughter. He probably wanted to know if I'd bullied Aller. Again, I did not wait for his teasing and went right to the point. Dad, I remember asking you for money a while ago. Yes. You requested that I use the company's name to sponsor 2 students in my previous life. To protect Gwen and Ama's self-esteem. I asked Dad to secretly sponsor them under the name of the branch company, in another city. I also told Dad to make it appear natural so no one would notice. Then Dad used that money to set up an award, almost through underhanded means. Gwen and Amos won an award. Later, Gwen didn't get into college. But she used this award and her relationship with one of my uncles to get a special recruitment quota and enroll in university. Come to think of it, Gwen could be graduating from a prestigious university as a result of this secret good deed I performed for them. I asked Dad, how far has it gone now? Dad responded with a smile. We've already sent people to contact the 2 students. The award has been decided internally, and the funds have been transferred accordingly. Next, Dad asked me why my TA had other plans. I smiled coldly as I remembered how my father had died in my previous life. Dad, do not transfer the money. Dad was a little confused. I suggested after careful consideration last night, that it would be preferable to donate this money. The work of these 2 classmates does not warrant such a significant bonus. It costs 200,000 yuan for one award. There must be people around the world who require this money more than those who are sick. Let's use it to save lives and heal the sick. Dad appeared to be thinking. My mother died as a result of illness, and these words touched a nerve with my father. Dad stated that the parents of these 2 classmates are still alive, which does not meet my sponsorship criteria. It's just that because you, Tia, wanted to help them, Dad was willing to provide it. I felt a little sad. My dad's love for me was always unconditional. It was just that some people were constantly trying to take advantage of this unconditional love. When I arrived at school, Gwen had already received notice that the bonus had been cancelled. The judging panel conducted a final round of review, and she was eliminated. She gave me the wrong look. Tia had always suspected that this award was merely an excuse for my family to donate money to her. She was just pretending not to know now. She could no longer keep pretending and revealed her true nature. She took the initiative to approach me about this. I was eliminated. I pretended to be stupid. What were you eliminated from? The National High School Student Science Research Competition. I have to say that the name my father gave it was imposing. I suppressed my disgust and patted her on the shoulder. It's alright, Gwen. We will try again next time. Continue working hard. Gwen, you know my father is a gambler. My mother pays off debts by working odd jobs. My father recently got into debt again. I informed them in advance that I had won the award. They promised the debt collectors that they would repay the money at the end of the month. Gwen's face turned pale as she didn't know what she was thinking about. Tia, if we can't repay it, my family will be ruined. Oh, what should we do then? I replied with a worried and sad expression on my face. I genuinely want to help you, but I overspent last month. Dad was upset and had just stopped all of my cards yesterday. By the way, do you own any money? Please lend me some. She looked at me with disbelief. I looked embarrassed. I don't have any money to spend. You are aware that I am not a thrifty person. I gave you 3,000 yuan last week. You are usually more frugal and have most likely not paid anything. Give it back to me. Okay, Tia, I'm sorry. I gave the money to my parents. I have no money to repay you. Oh, that's okay. Please remember to pay me back when you have the funds available. We're best friends. After that, Gwen refused to mention the word money to me for fear of being asked to repay me. She couldn't get money from me, so she had to turn to Amos for help. Sure enough, I noticed Gwen sneaking out. She was in a hurry. She went to see Amos more and more often, and she couldn't care less about keeping her distance after class. That day, Gwen Hurley stated that she needed to leave first. She went to Amos's classroom to wait for him. Amos was especially silent this week, as if he were reflecting on why his life had taken a turn. His behavior triggered a chain reaction, resulting in his neglect of Gwen. Gwen assumed he was hesitant, so she rushed to his classroom. When she noticed that all of her classmates had left, she confronted him with red eyes. Amos, I understand you don't like Tia. You think she's overly spoiled, careless, and lacks proper manners, but we can't wait any longer. If my father's debt cannot be paid, they will take me to pay it off. We grew up together. I gave you my first time so that you could live a good life. I even took the initiative to become friends with Tia. Do you know what people are saying? They laugh at me for being Tia's follower. Don't I have dignity? For whom have I made these sacrifices? Even if you don't like her, can you not be with her? For my sake, after Gwen yelled, she noticed that Amos's hand holding the pen had frozen. For a moment, I like her. What? Gwen screamed hysterically, believing she had misheard. Ah, what were you saying, Amos? What exactly are you talking about? With a bitter smile, Amos said that his voice was like that of horses. It's exactly what you heard. Gwen? What makes you think I didn't look for you this week? I was just reflecting on what my feelings meant. I had initially followed them to see how they would turn on each other in this life. But when I heard Amos's words, an unmistakable sense of sadness filled my heart. What was the point? I was already dead, and everything had started over. Nonetheless, he said he liked me. If he wanted me, why didn't he cherish me after we got married? If he liked me, why did he make Gwen pregnant, transfer my property, and divorce me? Was this his way of expressing love? He was not the 18-year-old Amos. Now he was the Amos who had an 8-year emotional history with me, had been in my wedding, and had been so intimate with me in the past. It was too late and ridiculous for him to declare his love. When he confronted the innocent Gwen, his words drove her insane, and she cried. Amos, you are my boyfriend. How could you say that? Like Tia, she is my friend. Amos's eyes were cold. You asked me to pursue your friend. It is different. Tia has everything, while I only have you. Gwen's words lacked confidence. I just asked you to help me take something from her, because I sensed Amos' mood was off. She stepped up to coax him, looking pitiful. The scene was getting increasingly inappropriate. Gwen tried everything to win Amos over with her innocent appearance and hesitant eyes. After all, Amos was a man who had strong feelings for Gwen. I noticed Amos's eyes changing gradually. I couldn't stop laughing. It was hilarious. I turned to leave and unintentionally stepped on the garbage at the corner, causing a noise. I'm not sure who left a box of empty yogurt bottles here. Who? Amos asked. At the critical moment, a pair of hands grabbed me from behind. When Amos and Gwen straightened their clothes and ran out, Aller grabbed my hand and ran towards the rooftop, and I climbed the stairs one step at a time, my hand tightly held by him. Warmth emanated from my palm, and my heart rate fluctuated. It wasn't until I felt the wind in my ears that I realized what was going on. Was this you? Amos caught up. They opened the iron door, which we had pushed and closed. Eliar looked at me with dark eyes that were filled with emotion. I wasn't sure how much he had heard, or if he had also heard Gwen's words plotting against me. Just as I was thinking quickly, Aller reached out and hugged me. He turned around and completely covered me. Amos had already stepped onto the rooftop, followed by Gwen, who was out of breath. Amos frowned and looked at Lur. Were you the one who dropped Eves on us just now? Lur did not move. Amos became suspicious and planned to come over to deal with the situation. It wouldn't be good for him or Gwen if what they were doing in class were to become known. He was doing it for Gwen. When Amos realized it was Lur, he paused for a moment but continued to see me. Amos spoke in a hoarse voice, Tia. At this point, I pulled Aller. Aller returned Amos' gaze with a fierce expression and hugged me tightly. Amos's eyes turned red as he let go. What are you doing with her? Aller, couldn't you see Gwen, Tia, yourself, and Aller? I covered my face, appearing hesitant. We've been on the rooftop for half an hour, doing something serious. I asked instead, hey, why are you two together? Do you know one another? Gwen's face became pale. No, we do not. My so-called best friend had something to hide, so how could she ask? She continued to look at Amos, her worry evident. Amos clenched his fists tight. Amos told Tia that the school does not allow puppy love. I couldn't help but laugh, classmate. Why are you being so dramatic? I am just borrowing money from him. My words were identical to what I had told Gwen earlier that day. Gwen quietly breathed a sigh of relief. After Amos and Gwen left, Allers refused to let go of my hand. It wasn't until I gently pulled my hand out that he asked, Tia H, did I just protect you again? The following week, two significant events occurred. One was that Gwen and Amos lost their bonus. Neither of their families could repay the money, and their homes were looted. Gwen was nearly molested and fought hard to defend herself. Amos was beaten while protecting his mother. They grew up as childhood sweethearts. Both of their fathers were gamblers, coming from the same family and facing similar challenges. They had such strong feelings. No wonder Gwen hadn't been concerned about Amos's changing heart all these years. When she saw me with Amos, she was convinced that she was the one Amos loved, and that I was merely a means to an end for him to achieve his goals. Another event that occurred at the same time was that Ler was bullied again, because my relationship with him had recently improved. Amos was the one who secretly started it. The school hooligans had blocked the alley in Ler. They cursed him again, saying he was a toad who dreamed of eating swan meat and was always sticking to me. They also laughed at him. What can you give Tia during this time? Because Uncle Shah had been picking me up and dropping me off at Ler every day. He became acquainted with Lur. Lur did not say much but was very polite. He did not look down on Uncle Shah because he was a driver, and as a result, Uncle Shah treated him differently. On the day that Lr got into trouble, I had a bad cold and asked for leave, so Lar was alone. Uncle Shah stepped in to help him this time. Uncle Shah was also the one who revealed this to me in secret. Before I could think about it, he knocked on the door of my room. There was a bruise beneath Er's eyes. He touched my forehead to ensure that my fever had subsided, then said, "Tia, lend me some money." "What do you need the money for when starting a business?" Lr was planning to start a business. Things appeared to be changing significantly. I had previously lent all of my pocket money to Er. I lent Amos this money for college, and he did not repay me. Even after we married and started a family, things remained unsettled. This time, I invested directly in Lur, leaving Amos to fend for himself. There was still more than a year until Er died in the previous life. I hoped to change his faith in this life. The college entrance exam was coming up soon. Gwen and Amos were also sprinting with all their might, but Aller, who had excelled in school, was distracted by the prospect of starting his own business. I had no idea what he was going to do until the day before his college entrance exam. On the 19th of May, Ler invited me for a midnight snack. I wore a light yellow dress with my hair in a princess bun. When I accompanied Lurler to the night market, 6 handsome boys smiled at me and shouted, "Sister-in-law." Lear walked over with a smile, patted the leading boy's shoulder and stopped them. This action increased their excitement and they joked with a smile. "Brother, Lur, you're so protective. Lur, stop talking nonsense." "Yes, sister-in-law, brother Ler won't let us talk nonsense." Only then did I realize that Ler had used the money to start an esports game company. The 6 boys in front of me were the first group of professional players signed by Lur. I went to the bathroom about halfway through my midnight snack. I unexpectedly saw Amos while passing by the back door of a supermarket, where thousands of lights were shining brightly. Amos, who should have been at home studying for the college entrance exam, was instead working and moving goods. He was wearing a shabby vest, sweating profusely, and struggling to carry several boxes of beer on his shoulders. Because of the effort, the muscles in his arms bulged and the veins in his neck became visible. When he noticed me, he paused. For a moment, both I and I stood still. Amos withdrew his gaze, gritted his teeth, and continued to move things silently after a coworker referred to him as President Little Amos. He hadn't come back to look for me since the last time, nor had he attempted to pursue me and take my family's money. As Gwen had mentioned, it turned out that he had chosen to work and study in a more honorable manner. After moving these boxes, Amos proceeded to move other items. He accidentally bumped into something, resulting in a long scratch on his arm. After completing the move, the boss settled accounts with him. Aller appeared suddenly behind me. "Tia." I did not hear him the first time he called, so he called again. I looked back at him. He probably came looking for me because I had been gone for too long in the last few months. He had been invaluable to me. He tutored me in my studies and occasionally assisted my father with some work in exchange for staying and eating at our home. I had asked him to call me by my nickname a long time ago, but this was the first time he had called me by my nickname. I forgot to respond briefly tonight. He looked in the direction where I had been in a daze just now and fixed his gaze on Amos. Amos signed the payment receipt with his head down. Aller asked if I felt sorry for him. I shook my head. This is how things should be. He came from a low-income family, so being self-sufficient was understandable. Everyone should take responsibility for their own lives. Those who abandon their moral compass are the most shameful. Should I end this new life? Amos was beginning to behave like a real man. After returning to the midnight snack doll, a curly-haired boy from the esports team ordered beer. Everyone was in good spirits, and I even had a couple of drinks. Both LER and I were a little tipsy. Instead of going into our rooms separately, we stood together on the balcony and chatted while watching the stars. I asked him, "Ler, do you prefer the stars or the moon?" He said, "The moon." I asked why. LER paused for a moment and stared at me for what seemed like an eternity, until I assumed he would not respond. He said quietly, "I want to protect my moonlight." Suddenly, I couldn't control my emotions. I used to be afraid of his gloominess and disliked his loneliness, but as I grew closer to him in this new life, I realized it was just his protective color. Nobody would turn down kindness, and no one wanted to walk alone in the dark. It's just that no one ever loved him in his previous life. Fortunately, in this life, ER had the opportunity to start over after his dad took him in. ER's father breathed a sigh of relief, and Lar was also grateful for our family's kindness. After spending months together day and night, he learned to open his heart and be kind to me and my father. The care hidden in the details was invaluable. We were able to see ER's kindness gradually. More importantly, I witnessed ER's efforts to stand by my side step by step. He got up early and returned late, working hard to launch his business. He even sacrificed his sleep time and stayed up late to help me take notes. He summarized my incorrect question bank and provided step-by-step solutions to the problem. He would appear beside me whenever I needed him and always protect me. I used to believe that love was passionate, as evidenced by Amos's previous romantic confession to me. However, after experiencing Lur, I realized that true love is concerned with every detail. It was a preference with no principles. Everyone looked down on him, and he looked down on himself, feeling dirty. But he could fight the world for me and strive to be cleaner. On this night, Lur and I watched the moon together. He didn't express his feelings, and I didn't either. But I had already seen my own heart clearly and considered some things in life that I couldn't give up due to previous setbacks. I needed to say goodbye to Amos and Gwen and start my own life before I could truly live for myself. Amos stopped me on 20th of May. Amos handed me a box with a well-known brand logo on it. "What is this?" "This is a gift for 20 May. "Oh, I can't accept this. We're just classmates, and we don't know each other well." Amos forced the object into my hands, and the paranoia in his eyes grew even stronger. I wasn't sure if he remembered the significance of this day, or if he wanted to win me back in his way again. Anyway, he was very insistent. Our wedding anniversary used to be on 20th of May. On that day, we went to get our marriage certificate together, but he got a phone call on his way. He reluctantly accepted the certificate and departed immediately. Unfortunately, I was so naive back then, with my heart full of love, that I didn't notice anything wrong at all. Amos said, "Take it." I purchased it with my own money. I looked at him and had no idea what to say. Previously, he rarely bought anything for me with his own money. My father earned all of his wealth. He had high expectations after decades of hard work, but when I repeatedly refused, he became impatient. Amos frowned. "Tia, do not be so stubborn." "I am being stubborn." Amos right. My classmate. I smiled. "I have also heard from Gwen about your family situation. Your mother is currently in the hospital, receiving dialysis treatment. Your family is facing a difficult situation. Nonetheless, you are still willing to buy this for me. I will not accept it." Amos was stunned for a moment and stood alone. After saying goodbye to Amos, I distanced myself from Gwen. Since Gwen couldn't get money from me, she repeatedly joined another small group. When she was chatting with other girls, she would often mention trying to misinterpret me, whether intentionally or unintentionally. There was a girl in our class who was very good at seeing through people's true natures. Finally, she couldn't help but respond, "Gwen, that is enough. Taya was so nice to you before, but now you're being sarcastic and speaking ill of her. Are you a green tea drinker? A scheming individual who pretends to be innocent? You are so fake." Gwen's face turned red, then pale with anger, and she lost all her popularity. She wanted others to isolate me, but her plan backfired. 1 week before the college entrance exam, our classmates completely ignored her. She was so angry inside that she ultimately suffered the consequences and performed poorly on the exam. After the results were released, she didn't even receive the lowest passing score. Gwen did not get into college. Amos maintained his previous scores, which all rank among the top 3 in our city. My grades improved significantly as a result of their assistance, and I gladly chose University A on registration day at the university. I saw Amos and Lar on the university campus, without hesitation. I stood beside Lur, time flew by. And it was already sophomore year. ER's business venture coincided with the golden age of esports, and he amassed a substantial amount of money during his lifetime. He has achieved success in his career and will never be bullied to death again, and I have also lived a carefree life, occasionally teasing Lear. Finally, I asked him a question that had been bothering me for more than a year. He looked at me, perplexed, because he had matured significantly this year. What on earth is 13092? Lear's eyes widened, and he finally turned red. He asked me, Tia, who told you this string of numbers? I waved my hand. You tell me first, and I will respond. No matter how I pressed Aller, he refused to say that our relationship was anything more than friendship, much less that of a couple. Finally, my roommate couldn't take it anymore. Tia, when will you and R finally move past this ambiguous stage? This is unlike any other television series. Our class will plan a group camping trip in a few days. It's a 2-day, 1-night trip that we can take with our family. Why don't you invite Lear to join you? My roommate was very encouraging. There is no rush. What do you mean, there's no rush? Lur was waiting for you to ask him. How about taking the initiative? I said it cheerfully. Okay, since everyone hopes so, I'll invite him on this camping trip. On the day of the outdoor camping trip, there were over 20 students in our class, some accompanied by friends and others by their girlfriends. Finally, a group of 40 people rented too many buses and attempted to climb the mountain. We reserved several wooden cabins in the forest and more than a dozen starry sky tents. Everyone who accompanied me helped me carry my luggage and chose a wooden cabin for me. To my surprise, Amos, a friend of one of the boys in our class, also participated in this camping activity. I was surprised when I first saw Amos, but I ignored him as if he were the hare. Suddenly, I noticed a familiar face at the campsite's supply collection point. What is wrong? Aller asked me. I believe I saw Gwen in the blink of an eye. The person was gone. Gwen did not attend college and had long since entered society. I must have been mistaken at night while alone in the wooden cabin in the forest. Before I could react, I smelled something strange. I had already lost consciousness in the middle of the night fire. The fire was spreading everywhere. The heat wave jolted me awake, leaving me unsure whether I was in a dream or not. The thick smoke choked me painfully, and I even began to experience hallucinations. I seemed to see myself returning to the past. At the time, I was still with Amos as my boyfriend. He accompanied me and Gwen to participate in this class activity. Gwen and I slept in the same room while camping, and we all got caught in a large fire. I quickly covered my head. Desperately, my head hurt a lot. I could see her rushing to save me. Tia, I was drugged and unable to move, having had the same experience in 2 lifetimes. The hallucination blurred the lines between reality and illusion. Aller was the one who rushed in to save me. At the time, I lived in a remote area where wildfires could easily spread. When everyone discovered the fire, not only was my wooden cabin on fire, but so were the surrounding trees in my last life. Lur also happened to be at this campsite. He saved me, but he did not make it out. Finally, he handed me over to Amos and asked him to carry me out, but he disappeared into the sea of fire. Later, everyone claimed that he was bullied to death, and I agreed, but that was not the case in my previous life. Aller died when he rushed into the fire to save me. My consciousness was hazy as I stared at the tons of fire swallowing the roof one after another. I remembered more things this year. When Aller died, the fire caused me to lose my memory. This mountain fire resulted in 1 death and 2 injuries. Aller was killed during those days, and Amos and I were injured because Amos was the one who finally carried me out of the fire. Everyone assumed Amos had also saved me as a result of this incident. My father's attitude toward Amos shifted dramatically, and he began to approve of my relationship with him tacitly. Until later, when my father handed over the company to Amos, he never considered the connection, and because I had lost my memory as a result of the trauma, my father felt so sorry for me that he refused to let anyone bring up the incident with me, as if it had never happened, saying that it was enough for me to recover. Amos, on the other hand, claimed credit for something he did not deserve. He simply carried me out in the end, but now that he had gained so many benefits, he was even more afraid that I would remember the truth, and thus never mention this incident under the guise of for the good of everyone. I completely forgot about this incident. Only Aller was buried in that massive fire. Specifically, no one cared about him, so he died quietly. When the fire spread to my feet, I suddenly remembered everything. At a critical moment, the locked door was kicked open completely and Lur rushed in. Tia, why are you here? I cried. I will take you out. Lur tried to help me up, but I was too weak to move. He picked me up horizontally. A burning beam fell and struck his hind leg. He winced in pain, and sweat broke out on his brow. I huddled in everyone's arms, staring at him with red eyes. He's ridiculous. He's always been silly, whether in this or the previous life. I did not redeem it. He is saving me because I told him earlier in the day that I noticed Gwenler was more cautious in this life. He arrived earlier than in his previous life, and the fire had not yet spread. He still had time to save me. This time, however, things were different. After emerging from the thick smoke and raging fire, my mind gradually cleared, and I heard the hard trending cries of my classmates all around me. Fire extinguished the fire. Quickly dial 119. There's a fire in the mountains amidst the chaos, and I saw Amos, his face pale as a sheet, running towards the center of the fire against the flow of people. He was shouting my name. He first called me Tia, then Tia, and finally the long, unheard and missed Honey. Amos was in a terrible mess, staring directly at the sea of fire as if he were dead. He wanted to rush inside. Others told him to calm down, but as he was about to rush in to save me, I called his name. I'd inhaled too much thick smoke, and my voice was hoarse. He could not hear me. Lur helped me call him Amos. Then Amos looked over at me. The first thing he noticed was me nestled in ER's arms, with Lur holding me. This single glance appeared to last forever. Amos clenched his fists tightly, his eyes filled with intense emotion. It is too late. It was too late, even if God gave him another chance to start over. So what could he do with it? From the moment he chose Gwen in his previous life, our relationship was doomed to fail. Although our lives are long, the harm inflicted by those closest to us is like a deep knife wound that penetrates to the bone. Even if it heals, it will leave a permanent scar. Consistency is the most effective way to maintain love. Do not hurt those you care deeply about, and do not put human nature to the test. Human nature cannot withstand the test. Any sensible girl would not want to go back. Amos opened his mouth to speak to me, but his voice seemed to be stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say anything at all. Finally, he laughed, and the laughter became increasingly louder. Amos appeared to be laughing at himself. People looked at Amos. Amos, worried, said, "It's fine as long as you're okay." After saying that, he turned and left. There were no casualties as a result of the fire's early detection. Knowing that Ler had broken his leg while attempting to save me, Dad went to the hospital to see him. I told Dad some strange details about the day of the fire. Dad said, "Tia, Dad will give you an explanation for this matter in my previous life. Because Gwen was also a student at University A and was very close to me, I had never been wary of her. That's what allowed her to do some things without anyone knowing. This time, she arrived at the scene strangely and harbored a grudge against me, so she had a strong motive for committing the crime and a clear target for the investigation. Many truths were easily discovered. This time, no one blamed me for my carelessness with the fire. It was not my fault at all. Soon, the investigation results were released, revealing traces of arson at the scene. There was only one more step to send Gwen to prison. Dad said we should wait for good news. He was determined to find out who had harmed his daughter. Just then Amos turned himself in. Amos was prosecuted and sentenced, and before serving his sentence he asked to see me. I went. Amos said, "Tia, I did not set the fire. I know I thought about the fire a lot later, reflecting on my past life. Now it appears that the fire in my last life was a scheme devised by Gwen and Amos to advance their careers, as my dad initially opposed Amos and me being together, believing that he could not take good care of me. Gwen drugged me and started a fire beside me. Finally, they let Amos come to their rescue. They hadn't expected Ler to arrive so quickly. Amos only managed to get me out. Gwen held a grudge against me and decided to take risks to exact revenge on me in this life. Amos had no idea, so he arrived late. It could be argued that he never imagined that even without his involvement, there would still be fire in this life. Amos knew I'd finally met the person who had truly saved me, and he didn't even have one last chance in this life. Amos told me, "I'm going to prison for you. What does it mean to me if you didn't start the fire but are willing to go to prison voluntarily?" Amos had bluish stubble on his face and was utterly exhausted. "Tia, you have also returned correct." I pretended to be stupid and confused. Amos smiled bitterly. "Whether you've returned or not, I can't have you in this life. But Tia, I've never told you in person that I love you. I was stupid. I didn't appreciate it while I had it, and I only regretted it after I lost it. You used to take me seriously when I was young and inexperienced. But now that I'm mature, I appreciate your perspective even more. You gave me half of your love. And I let you down. I do not deserve you. I've been thinking over the last 2 years that if I hadn't made mistakes at the start, we wouldn't be in this situation. Tia, would we have been delighted?" He smiled, knowing that I had a beloved wife by my side and was wealthy, a life that many men dream of. But I didn't understand. I valued my self-esteem more than anything else. "Tia, do you know what I despise the most in my life? People call me a phoenix man, implying that I, Amos, relied on my father-in-law to thrive. How about my efforts? Who could see my efforts? What you gave me was so brilliant that it eclipsed my halo, so I had to get that money in my hands. Only when everything belonged to me, Amos, and Gwen was by my side, could I call myself an honorable man. Amos lowered his head, and the corners of his eyes turned a little red. But after experiencing this life again, I realized I was completely wrong. I had already fallen in love with you during our 8-year relationship. I was afraid you'd cry, be in pain, or be unhappy. When you frowned, my heart ached. Unfortunately, I realized these feelings too late. Tia, going to prison now is my karma. This is my way of repaying you. Amos claimed that he had done too many wrongs in his previous life. He didn't know how to compensate for them, so that was it. I was released from the detention center just in time for my father's planned family dinner. Anyway, this situation had come to an end. It was supposed to be a family dinner, but only 3 people sat at the table. Dad, Ler and I sat at the table, looking at each other and smiling. I felt embarrassed being stared at by him, so I lowered my head and pretended to drink water. Well, that was good. Dad looked at Ler, then at me, and burst out laughing at the dinner table. I believe you two are like 2 maggots who have eaten enough and are wriggling around. Why don't you two go for a walk? I looked at Dad, shocked. Is there anyone who would describe their daughter in that way? Dad. Dad grabbed me and pulled me up. Go. Our yard at home was enormous. Dad hired people specifically to care for the flowers and plants. Ler had lived here for more than half a year over the last 2 years. We were both very familiar with the yard. Was it necessary to walk around it? On Er's smile, he said, let us go. Then, with Dad's encouragement, I chatted under the jacaranda tree in the yard. Looked down at me and explained that he had a dream the night of the fire. In the dream, he saved me and then died in the fire. He closed his eyes, exhausted. He made a heartfelt wish. I hope my moon is happy throughout her life. If the moon is not pleased, I want to make her happy. Aller stated that when he opened his eyes, he saw the first ray of sunlight in the morning. The light penetrated his palm, and it appeared that he had gained an extra life out of nowhere. Tia, you have always wanted to know what 13Z92 is the means, right? Come closer, and I will tell you. I stood on tiptoe and leaned closer, surprised. Aller kissed me. He explained that Tia 1309 represents your name, and 24 means I love you. He had used the same bank password for 2 lifetimes. He had never spoken aloud about his continuous love. 22 I spent my entire life dreaming about her side story. I am an illegitimate child. When my mother was 19, she met my father. She was initially unaware of the truth. She thought she had found true love, but later discovered that the man she loved the most had deceived her, and she became the despised homewrecker. It would not have been as shameful if she had stopped it, but she ultimately chose to forgive my father and continue this relationship. Did she realize that when she decided to continue, she became the third party actively destroying someone else's family? My father's wife despised my existence because it served as a constant reminder that her husband had betrayed her. Even I felt that my origins were shady, so when others bullied me at school, I gave in. I did not want to resist, and I was too lazy to do so. My eldest brother was the only person in this family who treated me with kindness. He always said that these were all adults' faults and had nothing to do with us. When I was punished and couldn't eat, he would give me pocket money and bring me food. But one day, my eldest brother died because of me. He took me outside to relax, but we had no time to react. One moment, we were laughing. The next, a speeding truck tore through everything we knew. He shoved me aside so quick, so selfless, and in an instant, he was gone. Crushed under the wheels, the person who'd been my warmth, my shield, torn in half right in front of me. Sometimes I thought maybe it would have been better if the bullies had beaten me to death years ago. Someone like me. Filthy. Unwanted. Did I really deserve to live when he didn't? But then she came. The girl I'd watched from afar for so long. The only bright thing in my endless night. She found me when I was ready to disappear. She pulled me back. I asked her why. Why would she help someone like me? Was she scared I'd cling to her like a lifeline I'd never let go of? What did she say back then? I can't even remember her words now. All I remember is that she shone, my moon, casting silver light over my darkest corners without even knowing it. One day, someone stopped me on the street, asked me what can you possibly give her. I answered without blinking, everything. My whole life, if she wants it. So I fought. I clawed my way out of the gutter. Built a business with these scarred hands. Stayed close, always just behind her, never letting the shadows swallow her like they did me. And when my time in prison ended, I saw it. The VCR of Lur and Tia's wedding. In that ocean of flowers, Tia looked like a pearl Lur would cherish forever. His eyes never wavered. His love never strayed. But in that perfect garden, under the sun, the man who stood there and kissed her, that was me. If this story left you breathless, hit that subscribe button right now. Share this with someone who knows what it's like to love in the shadows. And tell me in the comments, what would you give for the one who saved you? I'm waiting to read every word.